Hey, welcome everyone to our video guide. My name is Ned, and in today's video, we're going to take a closer look at Caspio's latest feature called Directories. Directories, essentially, it's a built-in IDP provided by Caspio that allows you to manage all of your end users, how they log into your Caspio applications, all from within one centralized interface. There are many security benefits when it comes to directories, but before we get into security, I would like to show you how to set up all of your directories from scratch and how do you link them back to your data pages. You may have noticed from my Applications tab, for today's video, I have set up this application called Service Requests, and the whole premise of this application is for my customers to log in, open up service requests, and then I want the employees to log in and manage all the submissions. So in that case, we're going to have to set up two different directories, one for the customer and one for the employees. So let's navigate back to directories. I'll create my very first one, and let's start with the customers. And then I'll quickly set up my second one for the employees. You'll also notice on this window is that we can convert the existing table to a directory. Later in the video, I'm going to show you how to take your existing user table and how to convert that into a directory. But for now, we're going to hit create. And you should be able to see both of them listed. It's up to you which one you want to begin with. I'm going to start off with the customer directory. And you'll notice that we currently don't have any users. So let me create my very first one. I'm going to list myself as the sample user. So I'm just going to add my email here. We can expand these optional fields. And I'm going to list down my first name and my last name. In just a few minutes, I'm going to show you how you can add additional fields here, but for now, let's move down to the sign-in method. And by default, I'm going to choose the Caspio IDP. However, if your organization has an external IDP, let's say you're using Okta or Microsoft Active Directory, you can link that IDP to your directory over here so your end users can log into your Caspio applications. Next, let's move down to activate the user. So when you check this box, you'll have two methods on how you can validate and activate your end user. You can send an email with the activation link, or you can generate the password, provide that password to your end user, and then the optional checkbox field here, you can now enforce your end user to change the password when they first log into the application. I'm going to use the send email method. I can also add my users to specific groups. Groups are a great way to organize users into categories. So if you have, let's say, different departments like marketing, sales, HR, you can add those users to the department so they're easier to manage. But because I don't have any groups created, we're going to hit create here. And we should be able to see Ned listed as the very first customer. You'll notice my status is still pending user activation. So let me show you what the email looks like for my inbox. Here's the email that just came in. You can change the logo to something else if you'd like. And now as soon as Ned activates the account, it's going to ask me to create my password. I'm going to create something very generic here. We're just going to put in my password. We'll repeat that one more time. And now I can activate my account, and it's automatically going to redirect me to the login screen. All I need to do is input my email, my password, and I should be able to see any linked data pages to my directory, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. For now, let's go back to the Caspio and see what that looks like from the admin perspective. So back in Caspio, as soon as you reload the page, you will now be able to see that Ned is an active user. If I want to change the settings on Ned's account, I can open it, and in the upper right, I can reset Ned's password, I can suspend his account if I no longer want him to log in, or I can delete him from my customer directory. Next, let's talk about security. With just 2 clicks, you can enable two-factor authentication either for a single user, or you can enforce that across all the users in that same directory. Two-factor authentication adds an additional layer to your login screen, most likely where the end user has to use a physical device, maybe an iPhone with the Google Authenticator app, to get a randomly generated key, plug that back into the login screen, and now they're going to be able to log into the application. In addition to two-factor authentication, we've also made enhancements to your password security policy. So if I click edit, now you'll notice that we have failed sign-in attempts. So if you set this to, let's say, 5, and your end user fails to log in 5 times using their credentials, they're going to be automatically locked out. We still have the minimum password length, and now we have number of previous passwords restricted from use. So let's say if you set that to 5, and your end user already used 5 different passwords, they're not going to be able to use those passwords anymore, so they'll have to come up with a brand new one before they can log in. We also have the ability to enforce password expiration. So if you set this to, let's say, 60 days, your end user will need to reset the password after 60 days. You can also send an email reminder, let's say 3 days. So now 3 days before the 60th day, they will get an email, they can reset the password, and they can log into their application. I'll hit cancel. And let's talk about User Portal next. User Portal allows you to modify the login experience for your end users. So for example, with branding, I can change the logo on my login screen. I can also change the display name. If I scroll down, you'll see a footer section. So here you can provide some helpful links. So if your organization has a terms of use, you can provide that link. If you have a privacy statement, you can provide that link. And even if you have a link to your support channel, you can provide that, which would be very helpful to your end user if they're struggling to log in. Also, one thing to point out here, the reset password capability is automatically built into the directories, so you no longer have to build a data page for your end users to reset the password. It's all built in and automated with the directories setup. We'll close that. When it comes to identity providers and app connections, those will be covered in separate videos, so keep an eye out on our how-to if you want to learn more about those integrations. Next, let's go back to the home page. My recommendation, because now if you open up your application and you go directly to your tables, you're not going to be able to see those directories, which are essentially tables. But if you want to include the customer and employee directory inside your application, go back to your home page, click on All Assets, go into your tables, and I recommend that you take your customer directory, click More, click Share, select the app, and click the Share button. Same thing with the employee directory, click More, Share, select your app, and now when you go back into your application, you're going to be able to find them and easily modify all of your fields and data types. Remember how in the beginning of the video I mentioned I will show you how to include more fields inside a directory under that expandable option where we see additional fields? Well, let's say I click on Design for Customers. And for example, we add a title field and department. Hit Save. Back in our directory now. If I open up my customer directory, and I add a brand new user, once you expand those optional fields, you will now see those 2 newly added fields inside the directory as well. So now, how do we link that directory so when the end user logs in, they're going to be able to see the data page? Let's go back to the home page. Open up the app. And what I need to do is I need to set up my authentication. So we'll create that. I'm going to start off with the customer because I only have one user inside the customer directory, so we'll select that. I'm going to use the custom setup option, and I'm going to select my directory. And you don't really need to do anything else. Because we're going to use the email to log into our application, it's already automatically selected for me. The only thing that I recommend, if you expand the advanced settings, you'll notice we have this checkbox for auto redirect to directories login screen. If you're using a direct link deployment method, then you're not going to be able to see too many benefits from this checkbox. However, if your data pages are embedded in your website, then I'd recommend that you enable this checkbox because it's automatically, as soon as the data page loads, it's automatically going to bring up that directory login screen. If you leave this unchecked, then you're going to be able to see a login button, and the user has to click on that button before it brings up the directory. So just automatically redirect if you're using the embed deployment method. If you're using a direct link, it's not really going to matter. We're going to hit create. Let's give it a name, SR for service requests, and we're going to call this customer login and hit finish. And same way as before, we now have to apply our authentication back to our data page. I already have my form set up. I'm going to hit edit. We're going to hit next. It's already using the table that I need, which is the inspection requests. And I'm going to restrict access to my customer login. We're going to hit next. And then all we need to do is just make the field hidden because we need to stamp, and using the authentication method, we need to stamp the user GUID into our service request table so that we can associate our requests back to our customers. It is a very simple one-to-many relationship. Once you hit finish and save, we're going to take our direct link, copy the URL, paste that link into our browser, and then we're going to hit the login button, and that's going to bring up our directory where we can log in with Ned. Since I use myself as the example, remember me, hit continue, enter in your password, sign in, and there's my form. I don't have the two-factor authentication enabled. You'll notice back inside my directory, if I click edit, I can turn that on very quickly and enforce that across all my users as soon as I hit save. Next time I try to access the submission form, if I log out and log back in, it's going to have that additional layer of security for me to provide so that I can see this form. The last thing that we're going to cover off in today's video is the ability to convert the existing user table into a Caspio directory, and that's actually a very simple setup. If you go back to your directories and click on create, let's call this one dir for directory _ customers. And if you have an existing table already, just find that table. I'm going to use this one as an example, and you have to map out your fields from your user table to your directory. And it's just a couple of fields. You have your email field. User ID will have to be automatically created. If you have a first name, if you have a last name, link those to your table. And then we have the password field as well. And then down below, you can either make everyone active, or if you don't check this box and you bring in your user table to a directory, it's going to make everyone inactive initially. So if I activate everyone and hit convert, conversion successful, you will now notice we've brought in all the users from that table. You'll notice that the status says password expired. That's because it's using an old password policy. Now they're going to have to log in, create a new password, and be able to log in securely with the directories. In addition, you're going to be able to take advantage of all the new security features that are enabled, including two-factor authentication, activate your users, and as I mentioned before, we now have the automatic reset of password on the login screen, so you don't need to create that data page like we have in the past. Thanks for watching our video. I hope that you enjoyed it. And again, keep an eye out for the IDP video and app connections on our how-to.